Welcome to StopFake, the place where we uncover disinformation about Ukraine and set the record straight. I'm Kyiv Post editor Euan MacDonald, and I'm delighted to present this week's edition. Among the fakes we examined this week, Russian media distort Ukrainian poll results on the eve of Independence Day, Western Ukrainians don't know Ukrainian, Ukrainian politicians support sabotage in Crimea, and shipbuilding disappears in Ukraine. So let's get to the details. Distortion and manipulation of Ukrainian poll results is a favourite trick of the Russian media. On the eve of the 25th anniversary of the country's independence, scores of Russian media declared that only 60% of Ukrainians considered themselves citizens of their own country. The poll in question was conducted by the Ukrainian Academy of Sciences Sociology Institute and the Intellectual Perspective Fund. Its goal was to determine what Ukrainians primarily identify with their country: the cities and regions they live in, their ethnic communities, the former USSR, Europe, or the world. While 60% of respondents identify with being citizens of Ukraine, 22% identify with their city or region. The full poll results are available online. Russian media also twisted the survey results regarding NATO and the EU, claiming that improvements promised from closer association with the EU did not materialize, and so Ukrainians had gone sour in the EU, with as many as 52% being against Ukraine joining NATO. In fact, the poll results for or against joining NATO are tied at 38%. 23.5% found the question difficult to answer. Russia's federal news agency Ryazan published a story claiming that official university entrance exams showed that Western Ukrainians had the worst scores in Ukrainian language, literature, and history. This claim is inaccurate. According to the official testing authority, 9.16% of applicants in the Western Ukrainian province of Ternopil did not take the Ukrainian language exam, while in the southern Mykolaiv province, nearly 10% failed to do so. It is true that the Transcarpathia, Rivne and Chernivtsi regions did not have stellar test results. However, these regions do not represent all of Western Ukraine and should not be presented as such. According to Ukraine's 2001 census, Transcarpathia and Chernivtsi have very diverse populations. Transcarpathia in particular has large minorities of Hungarians, Slovaks and Romanians. The vernacular Ukrainian spoken there differs greatly from literary Ukrainian, while large minorities of Romanians and Moldovans predominate in Chernivtsi. These two regions, Transcarpathia and Chernivtsi, often star in fake stories about regional separatism and autonomy. The publication Ukraina.ru manipulated the content of a Facebook post by Ukrainian MP Semen Semenchenko, in which he allegedly justifies subversion in Crimea and offers to distribute weapons to the population of the country. Semenchenko is categorically talking about Ukraine striking Crimea and understands that Ukraine will be considered a terrorist state because of this, writes Ukraina.ru. These words are taken completely out of context. Semenchenko writes that Crimea is a part of Ukraine and its citizens, including special intelligence personnel, have a right to be there. Russian occupation of the peninsula gives Ukrainian military intelligence the right to operate there. The destruction of critical infrastructure and the deployment of a partisan movement is also justified, Semenchenko writes. Ukraina.ru also completely distorts what Semenchenko wrote about weapons. The MP does not advocate the indiscriminate arming of the citizenry, but rather talks about a territorial defence force that would have access to arms when necessary. He calls for a law creating such a defence force, which would be trained and overseen by the Defence Ministry. Russian publication Ukraina.ru published a story this week claiming that shipbuilding as an industry had all but disappeared in Ukraine. The publication's source for this fake story is the Ukrainian Infrastructure Minister Volodymyr Omelyan's Facebook post from August 17th. However, Ukraina.ru does not cite the minister's post faithfully, pulling a sentence out of context to illustrate its fake claim while ignoring everything else which contradicts it. Omelyan does not write about the collapse of the shipbuilding industry at all. He writes about the resurgence that river transport was undergoing. He, in particular, cites the director of Ukraine's River Port Administration, Serhiy Bomchak, who has personally overseen the overhaul of water transport infrastructure and partially relaunched commercial river traffic in Ukraine. That's it for this week. You can find much more dissected disinformation on the StopFake website. Be vigilant, look out for any fakes, and if you spot any disinformation about Ukraine, send it to us for a truth autopsy. I'm Euan MacDonald, and this is StopFake. Thanks for watching.